Okay, another week of the Waine Train. Now, how am I going to tell everyone that I've sold all their favourite players from the club? Anyway, YouTube comments. I haven't checked those yet. Here we go. There's one. Okay, one I haven't checked from last video at the end of last week. Dear Sean Does FM, loving the series, blah blah blah. Loved Crucifix Heroes. Yeah. Oh, here we go. I wish you'd do more musical intros. Maybe you should do one around Like a Virgin, but because you're in the Premier League for the first time. Like, that wouldn't work. That wouldn't work. Would it? We made it through the championship. Somehow we made it through. Didn't know how we were until we signed you. We were weak, incomplete. We were bad. It is sad but true, and you made us feel. Yeah, you made us feel all shiny and new. Like a virgin, top tier for the very first time. Like a virgin, playing Bournemouth. That doesn't rhyme. Like a virgin, that makes me feel so good inside. When he scores goals, runs through holes. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Hey, hey, ho, ho. Shabby doo da quack quack, yeah. Nah, that wouldn't work. No way, no way at all. Okay, just the usual YouTube intro. Coming up today in episode 11 of the Waine Train. Hello everyone and welcome to episode number 11 of the Waine Train here on Sean Does FM. I hope you are doing well and coming up today we play our first game in the Premier League. It is against Bournemouth, and before then we do recap the transfer window where we did have £33 million to spend. How do we change this team to try and get it ready for the Premier League? So if you're looking forward to this first episode of the second season, our first one up in the Premier League, then do remember to go down below, leave a thumbs up on the video, and if you haven't done so already and are enjoying the series here on the channel, also consider hitting that subscribe button and turning that notification bell on as well. It is greatly appreciated. But at the end of last week, we did wrap up the first season of The Save with our last couple of games in the Championship. If you missed that one, I'll leave a link to it over in the top right corner. Obviously, we're now a Premier League club, so things went pretty well, albeit you could kind of see the signs coming in the prior episodes. And today, we'll wrap up the transfers and then play our first game of the season at home to Bournemouth. And to be fair, quite a kind opening fixture one where hopefully we can pick up a point at least and try and get ourselves out of the predicted relegation trouble that we will be finding ourselves in here at Plymouth Argyle. So we are going to go forward now and have a look at the transfers that we have done. Not much has changed in terms of the overall club since you were last here in terms of the actual facilities. The only thing that did change, we've got a bit of underground soil heating to make sure that no games do get postponed due to snow or anything on the turfs. Not much changing still. Home Park is our home ground. Thankfully, the stadium is good enough to handle Premier League football, so that is nice. But we have done quite a bit of transfer business off the back of the end of last week. Still got the same captain and vice captain, so that does mean our dynamics here actually surprisingly good despite all the transfer business that we have done. But we have signed quite a few players, and we've just got all the players that I wanted through the door before the start of this first game of the season. Let go of a couple of players who honestly were a little bit so-so for championship level, so I thought we should let them go, and also some players in the last year of their contract, so I thought probably a good time to try and move them on before their value did really go down, and we probably let them go for a free come the end of the season. So as you can see, we've done quite a bit of business. £49 million of transfers in, only £8 million of transfers out, albeit a couple of those are some loans with potential options to buy at the end of them. So I think we're going to start off with the outs that we did make, and that should hopefully make sense of the things that we have done in terms of bringing players into the club. First player that left the club on loan was Jack Endicott. Don't have to cover this one too much. Young player just coming up from the under-18s to the first team and would have gone next to no game time. So he's gone out on loan to Truro City. so he can get some football this season instead of sitting in the stands here at Plymouth Argyle. Then off the back of that, we did loan out Ryan Hardy to Livingston. Now, this might be a bit controversial because he was a decent backup striker for us last season, of course, in most saves, would be the starting striker over Ben Waine, but he just looked a little bit average, and I thought it was a good opportunity to try and get rid of him. His transfer value is at £7.5 million, unfortunately. Despite the help of intermediaries, no one wanted to pay that, but Livingston are going to pay it come the end of the loan if he does well enough for them. So he is back in Scotland, has gone out on loan to Livingston, his Ryan Hardy, and that does mean we have brought in a couple of other striker options in behind Ben Waine, but three-star current ability and potential, to be fair, not too bad. But I did feel like, just judging some attributes on some players who I did find on my shortlist, we could improve in the backup striker area for when Ben Waine isn't quite performing, and also when he is away on international duty sometimes. Do need a player to step in and around those international breaks off the back of the Waine Train, playing a little bit for New Zealand and also for the Olympic team. We have had the Olympics since you were last here. New Zealand didn't get out of the group stage. They did pick up a win over Guinea though, and also the Euros. Portugal won that, but Ryan Hardy no longer at the club. So far has played 1 goal for Livingston, has scored 2 goals and been man of the match, so he's doing a decent job there over in the Premiership, as you would expect. We'll see if he comes back to us at the end of this season, or if Livingston do take up that optional future fee. So that was the first transfer that we did do. Ryan Hardy out the door. Off the back of that, our first sale, Mustafa Bundu, who, to be fair, wasn't too bad for us here last season. He is left for £1.9 million, which is actually a pretty good profit considering that Plymouth Argyle signed him for $300,000, but 2.5-star current ability and potential when we were in the Championship. Fair to say we needed an upgrade on that for life in the Premier League. I did feel like 9 goals, 1 assist, 2 player of the matches in 33 appearances last season, but did just feel like we could improve that back up. And behind Callum Wright, so Mustafa Bundu, these days at Westerlo over in Belgium, his return to English football did only last 1 season. Off the back of that, we sold Caleb Roberts. Won't spend too long on this one. He was a youngster with not much potential. He's gone to Barnet. That one was for £30,000, and then a couple of days off the back of that, did get rid of a few more players. Jordan Helton, we'd spent a fair while trying to get rid of him through intermediaries because he was a bit upset at the fact I wasn't going to give him a new contract. That's because 2.5-star current ability and potential didn't feel like that would be a good idea, so we decided to cash in on him. £2.4 million, to be fair. Probably could have tried to get a bit more out of a club for him, but it has allowed us to reinvest in some better deep line playmakers going into the start of the new season. Of course, with Lewis Warrington not returning of his loan here last year, but Jordan Helton, he went to Derby County for £2.4 million off the back of a couple of seasons with Plymouth Argyle after joining those guys on a free. The former Chelsea man didn't play too bad for us last season, but it was another area where I did find some players on the shortlist who were upgrades in that position, and it was just a pretty good deal to get rid of Jordan Helton and reinvest that money into some upgrades for life in the Premier League. So Helton no longer here. Then Kieran Edworthy is a young striker that we loaned out to Oxford United. And getting a bit closer to the first game of the Premier League season, finally, we got rid of Saxon early. This one dragged on a little bit. 21 years old, was getting a bit fed up with us not giving him any opportunities last season as the backup left back behind Bali Mumba. To be fair, he is a player who can cover quite a few positions, but just not really that well. His potential had dropped down off the back of that injury he did suffer early last season. That potential when he was at the club was only 3.5 stars, didn't feature too much, just 10 games last season for us, and his average rating wasn't that great, so we have upgraded in the left-back position, as you'll see shortly. Saxon early, no longer at the club, and also last year didn't have to register him because he was under 21. That wouldn't have been the case this year, so it was a good time to cash in on Saxon early. Again, we make a good profit on that transfer with Plymouth, having only picked him up for £50,000 at the start of their League One winning season. Off the back of that, Dan Scarr, one of our experienced centre-backs here at Plymouth Argyle, his contract was expiring at the end of the season, and he was the worst centre-back that we did have at the club. With upgrade in that area, obviously you guys already knew that Reece Williams was joining, so Dan Scarr, despite the fact he is a pretty good aerial threat, especially at set pieces, we let him go to Osnabrück. That was for £1.1 million, another player that Plymouth picked up on the cheap a couple of seasons ago. So actually a profitable transfer, even though we probably could have yet again got more for him at the intermediaries. That is the most that they could muster. He is now in the 2 Bundesliga. And the last transfer that we did make was loaning out Tyreek Wright in the last year of his contract. He's gone out on loan to Wickham. He'll get a chance to impress there this season. Wickham I believe, in League One in this save. Indeed, that is the case, and he'll get some options off the back of that for the end of his contract. Unfortunately, no intermediaries could drum up some interest in him for a purchase to add to our transfer budget. But to be fair to him, was okay when we used him last season, but well down the pecking order, another area I felt like we could improve. Definitely a player who was not the quality that we were looking for in the Premier League. So we've got rid of quite a few players, some quite well-known ones here at Plymouth Argyle. Only got £8 million in for those transfers. So adding that to our £33 million transfer budget we already had, that got us up to 41 million. We did have some add-ons, as you can see. That's why the transfers in are around 49 million. And the first player that we did sign going into this new season was actually on the page before, because we did get Rhys Williams arrive from that transfer that we did already organise. So Rhys Williams, that's the replacement for Dan Scarr, as you can see, quite highly rated, very good aerially, and he jumps straight into the starting team as our central defender over Julio Pleguezuelo, another player who potentially could leave the club because his contract expires at the end of this season, but unfortunately no interest in him at the moment. He's actually quite highly valued, around the £10 million mark, so I think we'll try and hold off for a bit around about that mark and see how he gets on in his first season in the Premier League. But the former Liverpool man, Rhys Williams, he joins us with quite good potential, and to be fair, looks reasonably similar in terms of aerial threat to Dan Scarr. At least that's been the case in the preseason friendlies that we have played. So Rhys Williams should be quite good for us from those dead ball situations, but that's quite a good deal, only spending £250,000 on a new starting centre-back. As well as that, another deal from last season, that one came through nice and early. Rafael Mamas, he came here on a free transfer, our new backup balling midfielder in behind Andy Randall, and he's a decent player, 2.5-star current ability and 4-star potential, valued around about the £3 million to £4.5 million range. So that's quite good getting him on a free. And as mentioned, when we did sign him back getting into the January transfer window, he spent some time at Napoli and also in Cyprus, so hopefully he proves to be a decent squad player here at Plymouth Argyle. And as well as that, we mentioned this at the end of last week, quite a few players did come on a free transfer, but the first transfer we did make going into the new season was a central attacking midfielder. It was a free transfer, obviously. Luke Kundal and Finn Azars were here on loan last season, so it did mean we had to replace them, and we found Facundo Farias on a free transfer, a player I'm actually quite familiar with from Cardiff in the FMOE save last year, but he still looks really good, 21 years old. Was a bit of a no-brainer to try and get this guy, and thankfully he did decide to come to us over some other clubs in the English football pyramid. 3.5-star current ability, 5-star potential, a couple of good green attributes there. Hopefully he can build up a nice link with the Waine Train going in to this season, a couple ahead, because he's definitely a player that we can hopefully rely on in that cam role for a couple of years' time. Is on a squad player contract, but he will be the starter for us going into this new season. Will the former Inter Miami and Cologne man didn't play that much for Inter Miami over the past few seasons. We've picked him up, and hopefully he'll do a good job for us in the Premier Leagues. That was the first of our new signings going in to this transfer window, the ones that you were not aware of. And then we tick over into where the £49 million was spent. And first up, we did sign John Buckley as the new starting deep-lying playmaker here at Plymouth Argyle. We didn't spend too much on this guy from Blackburn. He's now valued between £4.5 and £5 million, 3-star current ability, 4-star potential. Yet again got him on a squad player contract, but ability-wise, he will be the starter for us in our first season in the Premier League. We got him for £4 million, but did spend a little bit, but he's definitely the best player that we could have found in that position that didn't just sign a new contract. It was a player out of Spain from Real Zaragoza. I think his name was Franco, but unfortunately, just when I was about to make a bid for him, he signed a contract extension. So that kind of killed the buzz, because he had a £7.5 million release clause and was 5-star rated. Unfortunately, didn't get him, so John Buckley was the backup option, would have been joining us anyway as the second choice, but in the end, he will be the first choice for us here going in to our first season up in the Premier League, English homegrown, and only 24 years old. Off the back of that, then we signed the replacement for Ryan Hardy, an Icelandic striker, so we're kind of going back to the Husavik Heroes days here, 22-year-old, and this is Andre Lucas Gudjonsson, 3.5-star current ability, 4.5-star potential. He's on a squad player contract, and that is definitely going to be the case, of course, because we're not dropping Ben Waine, not with this save name, but he's quite a promising striker who can hopefully fill the backup role in behind Ben Waine for the coming seasons for us up in the Premier League's done a decent job of late for IFK Norrköping over in Sweden, and also did a pretty good job as well out on loan at Lyngby in Denmark last season. Picked him up on the cheap for £2 million. I think that's quite a good deal for the former Real Madrid man, and hopefully he will be a good bench impact player for us if the Waine Train is absent off the back of international duty, as I said earlier, or when he does come off the bench if he is not performing. So a good backup striker there in Andre Lucas Good-Johnson. Off the back of that, we did get on a free transfer, a youngster who, to be fair, won't see too much game time, but just an extra squad player with good potential there, and Richard Leese on a free £500 a week as a future prospect. We got him after Chelsea let him go, so he's got quite good potential. Might step in at wing back if we get injuries on either side. But we do have quite good depth in that position these days, and that's capped off by, at that stage, our biggest transfer in the save, and that was Jacob Greaves from Hull City. We're actually signing him as a left back to improve over Mumba and to replace Saxon early. The reason I signed him is because Ipswich Town also came in for him, and he does look really good. So I didn't want Ipswich Town, one of our divisional rivals, who we're probably going to be in a relegation fight with, to pick him up. 3.5-star current ability and 4.5-star potential. To be fair, probably more natural at centre-back, being 1.91 metres tall, but he will be very good from aerial situations. And also, of course, on the left-hand side, we do play with a wing-back on defence. So I think the fact that he's a centre-back won't hurt him too much. He's got good enough pace and very good stamina. He should be a good option for us at left-back. Will the former Hull City man, only 23 years old. I think that's a good pickup, especially to make sure that Ipswich Town did not get him. So there's our new starting left back there in Jacob Greaves. And off the back of that, we did eventually get the right back from last season back here. And Kane Kesler-Hayden, this one will cost £20 million overall, albeit it wasn't that much up front. I'm pretty sure it was $14 million with £6 million in add-ons. But we know all about this guy. 20 assists in the Championship last season for us. And hopefully he can do something similar for us in the Premier League. It does mean we've got that nice green link up down our right-hand side between him and Morgan Whitaker, which is good. That's at least one partnership we do have returning from last season for our first one in the Premier League, but that transfer, not too surprising. We did telegraph that one a little bit come the end of last week, and 4 more transfers that we did make off the back of that. A couple not too long off the back of that one for Kesler-Hayden. First up, the replacement for Mustafa Bundu as the left wing backup. This is Tony Springett, who we signed from Norwich. Can actually play on both sides, but we're going to play him as a left winger. Definitely an upgrade on Bundu, and also Tyreek Wright. That was the sort of player we were looking for the backup in behind Callum Wright. 2.5-star current ability, 5-star potential. We signed him for £6 million. Didn't play too much in the Championship last season, but did a decent job. But a player who looks more than capable of filling in for Callum Wright with that potential. He will hopefully grow into that and might even become a first-team player at some point during the save. So Tony Springett, our new backup, down that left wing, also, of course, can cover the right if we do get some injuries to Morgan Whitaker and also to the likes of Ian Paveda. Then we look for our backup deep line playmaker, and also this guy can actually play a little bit of central attacking midfield, so a good versatile midfield option for us here. This is Tom Bischoff, we signed from Hoffenheim. As you can see, really good current ability rating and has potential, and only 19 years old. This a pretty good deal, only spending a couple of million on him. A squad player, albeit he is on quite a hefty wage, but he can play central attacking midfield and can also play defensive midfield. Quite well-rounded attributes for both of those positions. Is already valued quite highly. We only spent $3.5 million to get him away from Hoffenheim. Definitely a player for the future on our bench here at Plymouth Argyle, so a good pickup there in Tom Bischoff as a squad player. And then late in the transfer window, when Ben Waine was away on international duty in the pre-season, I did just think maybe an extra attacking option would not be so bad. Also someone who potentially could fill the Tyreek Wright role, but actually have some potential. And I went a little bit homegrown here in terms of a league I'm familiar with, being from New Zealand. I will say, though, he did pop up on my scouting centre. Otherwise, probably wouldn't have signed him. But we signed Nestori Ulunkunda, one of the very promising players from the A-League, out of Adelaide United for only £1.3 million. That was his release clause. He's got 5-star potential and already has been scoring some goals for us in a couple of pre-season games, 3 goals in 2 appearances. It's a very cheap deal for a player with quite a bit of potential. So we'll see how he gets on when we do use him. To be fair, probably won't feature too much for us on our bench unless some players are tired, but definitely someone with quite a bit of potential, and also being only 18 years old, he can still feature for our youth team. But that is a very good transfer considering his value. Nestori Ulunkunda out of Adelaide United for only £1.3 million for the Tanzanian international. And to cap things off, just a couple of days prior to this first game of the season, off the back of some transfers falling through for our first couple of targets for a second choice central attacking midfielder in behind Facundo Farias. I again have gone back to the well with a player I'm familiar with this time from my stream save over at Montpellier, but he was dirt cheap, and that is Nicola Ilya. We picked him up for only £550,000 up front. We just beat Napoli to his signature, and thankfully he did join us yet again, a player with a lot of potential, albeit that current ability is not quite there, and he will be on the bench as the backup to Facundo Farias, a player who can definitely grow into that 5-star potential. Inter Milan signed him a couple of years ago in real life for only £450,000. We pick him up for a slight profit there for Inter Milan, but he did a decent job out on loan in Bulgaria last season. I think he's a player in a couple of years' time who could be very good indeed for us here at Plymouth Argyle. So quite a bit of change here going in to this new season. We did spend a fair bit of money, as you can see. Not too sure really how we have been able to balance the books, but we have, as you can see, £712,000 left in the transfer budget and 9k left in the wage. With all those transfers, as I said, a bit surprising, our dynamics going into the start of the new season are so good, but that could be off the back of a very good pre-season where we did win all our games, including a 2-1 win over Aston Villa about a week and a half prior to the start of the new season. We actually rotated for that game a little bit with the likes of Erling Kunda and Gudjonsson, starting with the likes of Ben Waine still away on international dues. So with a good pre-season, hopefully we can get off to a good start here in the Premier League. In terms of our best 11 going to the new season, this is what it looks like. It's pretty similar to last season, honestly. The changes do come at central defence. Reece Williams over Claudio Plagazzello. Jacob Greaves at left back over Ballymunba at left back. Ballymunba probably won't be on the bench because Ryan Fredericks are quite useful, being able to cover both sides, of course, these days, with goalkeeping injuries being a bit more prevalent. The central midfield, we've got John Buckley starting, as I said, seeing as we've no longer got Houghton or Warrington. And in terms of central attacking midfield, Facundo Farias, he will be starting in behind Ben Waine. Still got Whitaker and Callum Wright out on the wing. So a couple of changes to our starting lineup, some of them to replace those players who were here on loan that we didn't bring back, but still, we did get Kesler Hayden back, as I said, to make sure we've got that nice green link down our right-hand side, but otherwise, it's a little bit different looking. Hopefully, won't take too long to build up these combinations, and we can make a decent fist of things in our first season up in the Premier League. In our usual bench, Hazard, Fredericks, Halsner as the centre-back option, Mamas and Bishov as the defensive midfield cover, Pervada, Iliev, Springett as the attacking midfield cover, and Gudjonsson as the backup striker in behind Ben Waine, and that does leave the likes of Plagazzello, Toure, Mumba, Elise, and Nestori as squad players who can come in if we do pick up injuries, or if we need to give some guys a rest if they are getting a little bit injury prone on their workload. And that will be the case actually going into this first game of the season. Both Tony Springett and Gudjonsson are slightly injury prone, so because of that, I think we'll actually chuck Nestori on the bench instead of Springett for this first game. Hopefully Gudjonsson can feature against Bournemouth if we need him to. To be fair, Erling Kunda can also cover striker, but we'll try and leave Ben Waine out there for as long as possible. Ben Waine actually probably needed this first hit out for us the most this season, just having come back from the Olympic campaign with the New Zealand team. As I said, unfortunately for them, they didn't make their way out of the group, but it does help us. Thankfully, it does mean he is back in time for the start of the Premier League season. In terms of the season preview, we are still predicted to finish right down the bottom, despite all those transfers. We're predicted to finish 19th. Editing Sean, might need to move my head to the other side. We are thankfully predicted to finish above one of the other promoted teams from last season, Ipswich Town, the team who came through the playoffs. But Leeds United, rather unsurprisingly, with their good roster, they are predicted to be fairly safe this season, but hopefully we can overperform that, kind of like we did in the Championship last season. At the very least, make sure we'll spend another season in the Premier League, get some money into the club, because the finances not too good off the back of that transfer window, but we do have about £80 million coming in TV revenue this season, so we'll get through that, hopefully stay up in the Premier League, and from there start to really try and improve this Plymouth Argyle squad as we do spend some more time in the top flight of English football. But going back to that season preview, as I said before, quite a kind first fixture for us here as we do take on Bournemouth, and this save still managed by Andoni Iraola. They do have some decent players in their lineup, like Zabani at centre-back, Alex Scott in the midfield, and they've also got Solanke up front, so a couple of players there we might need to keep a bit of an eye on. Last season, though, they did finish 15th. Hopefully, with this one being at home park, we can pick up a good result on the opening day of the season to hopefully build a gap on the relegation zone nice and early like we did last season in the Championship. If we don't pick up points from this game, that would be a bit concerning. Bournemouth should be one of the teams that we are in and around on the Premier League table this season. Hopefully, we can do a decent job here and pick up some points, at least a draw on this opening day of the season, and we'll go with that team that we did run through before our first choice 11 for the upcoming season, the Waine Train up front. Hopefully can still do a decent job. Just got to give some numbers here to some of our new signings. And now that we've done that, it's about time that we lose our virginity in the Premier League here at Plymouth Argyle. Interesting to see that some players are a bit concerned that Mumba has been left out, but Jacob Graves certainly an upgrade in that left back position, and also should be quite good aerially. So we should have plenty of aerial threats here at Plymouth Argyle, and that could be good if Kesler Hayden can continue like last season to put balls into the mixer and make an absolute nuisance of himself as a wing back on attack. Hopefully he will do a decent job up in the Premier League, but off the back of 20 assists in the Championship, I'd like to think that is something that he can do. Just one game played so far, Brentford, they picked up a 2-0 win over Ipswich Town, and that was at Ipswich Town's home grounds. Interesting to see they did not pick up a win in their opening game of the season, even though it was at home. We'll just get through that Mumba questioning yet again. As I've said a few times now, Graves is certainly an upgrade on Mumba, and Fredericks on the bench because he can cover both sides. But let's see how we get on in our first game up in the Premier League. Of course, it does mean no Championship graphics or EFL graphics anymore, which is a little bit of a letdown, but we are now in the top flight of English football. Let's see how this slightly new look Plymouth Argyle team does get on, but still the one always constant in the save, and that is that the Waine Train will be leading the line. We're in our traditional home green, Bournemouth in a light blue number, and let's see how our Gegenpress does get on, obviously off the back of picking up 103 points last season in the Championship. Felt that there was no need to change that, and off the back of a good pre-season as well, hopefully it can perform well again. But coming up to the 20-minute mark in this opening game so far, not a lot going on. Interesting to see that Leeds United have a brutal first game against Liverpool at Anfield. They are already 1-0 behind, but first highlight here is in our favour. We do start to get on the attack. Buckley plays that one out to Callum Wright. Those two wings, two areas which have been untouched. Both our wingers did a good job last season. Now for Farias, just inside the box. Tackle from Zabanye, no penalty, but Callum Wright will try and play this one with the mixer. It gets blocked. Now Buckley will play that one back into Callum Wright back there for the Waine Train. Can he take on a shot? He can't, back to goal, but Randall back out there for Buckley. Squares it for Callum Wright, and we'll get our first goal in the Premier League, and it is from our English left winger. And after only 20 minutes, we are on the scoreboard, and hopefully we can hold on here and pick up 3 points in our opening game of the Premier League season. As I said, this is a game we should be targeting to get some points from, but good work there from the Waine Train to keep possession. Thankfully, did not try and take on a shot under a lot of pressure. We eventually recycle the ball and put it back into the mixer, and Callum Wright gives us a 1-0 lead. Hopefully, we can now kick on and make sure that we do pick up all 3 points on this opening day of the season, but at least we are scoring goals up in the Premier League so far, doing a pretty good job defensively as well. Bournemouth with one shot, and it hasn't been on target. We haven't upgraded our goalkeepers. Could have looked to do so. There's definitely a very good goalkeeper out of Brazil I do have my eye on, but unfortunately, Mike Cooper, of course, is the captain, and we do have Connor Hazard, who did a pretty good job for us last season. Didn't feel like that was a necessity, so we might just hold off maybe until next season to try and improve that goalkeeping area if we do need to, but that's a pretty good first half, just the one highlight, and we did put the ball in the back of net through Callum Wright. Everyone out there is doing a decent job, so I think at the moment we don't need to make any substitutions. We'll just check in on some opposition instructions quickly, because I will do this season, because points in the Premier League are going to be gold dust, considering this should be a lot tougher than our life in the Championship was last season. Hopefully we can hold on here and pick up some points on this opening day of the season. Hopefully all 3, but no changes here going into the second half. We'll tell the guys we're doing well. Hopefully they can just go a little bit better, put this game to bed, and make sure we start the season with 3 points at home. If we can pick up points at home against these teams like Bournemouth, that will be ideal. Then a little bit less pressure on us when we do travel away from home, but so far this is going well. Hopefully we can just kick on, as I've said a few times, but coming up to the hour mark, still just the one highlight in this game, albeit we have got the first shot off in the second half, but not enough for us to get shown out through a highlight. But now going past the hour mark, it is still 1-0. Not a lot happening in this game in terms of highlights, but as I say that, there is a throw in our favour, quite similar where that first highlight did start from, but down the other end off the back of halftime, Kesler Hayden, he plays the ball forward there to Morgan Whitaker. Will he try and square this one? He does it, falls to Facundo Farias. It comes off the woodwork, a potential chance for us there to make it 2-0, and for some reason Callum Wright takes that one out for a throw-in, but that was a chance for us there to put this game to bed. Unfortunately, just didn't quite find the back of the net now. Just starting to make our way towards the last 20 minutes of this game, just checking in quickly on player fitness, and to be fair, everyone out there doing a decent job, and player rating wise as well. Don't need to change anything just yet, I feel like. So we'll save our last couple of subs up just in case we do need to freshen up some players once they do drop down to a red heart, which no doubt will happen soonish. And off the back of that, maybe we should have made some subs, because there is a highlight here of thrown to Bournemouth. They play that one all the way back to Neto in goal. Hopefully we can put enough pressure on here to win the ball back. Look like the Waine Train there might, although it's an absolute shocker. And somehow we're going to go 2-0 up. Lewis Cook with the own goal. I feel like Neto there might just be slightly at fault. It's a dream start here at Plymouth Argyle. It looks like we're going to win our first game in the Premier League. But Cook there, that's not that bad a pass. I'm actually surprised it's got enough momentum to go in the back of the net. But Lewis Cook is the second goal scorer in the Premier League for Plymouth Argyle, which is a little bit interesting. We go 2-0 up. Hopefully now we can hold on, but it is now Bournemouth off the back of that rather hilarious own goal, who are on the attack. To be fair, they probably do deserve to grab one back here, just because if that was me, I'd be pretty filthy and close to restarting the game. But Bournemouth here do keep position off the back. We're trying to float one there into the mix. We try and put good pressure there on Philip Billing, I believe that is. Now Adams does get in behind. We'll rocket that one top left corner. As I said, probably a bit of justice in that one, because that goal before from Lewis Cook, little bit dodgy, has to be said. So I think 2-1 now is a fair scoreline, but Philip Billing plays that one to Max Aarons, and then Adams for them finds himself in a ton of space in behind our defence somehow and does put that one away. But as I said, that's probably fair off the back of that Lewis Cook own goal. But now it's time for us to make some subs. A few players are down to red hearts. Ryan Fredericks can come on for Kesler Hayden. Also, young Tom Bischoff can come on for John Whitaker. And both our wingers down to a red heart as well. So Ian Paveda and Nestri Irinkunda, they can come on, and we'll see what the latter three of those guys can do on their Premier League debuts. As we look to hold on to this 2-1 lead, as I said, that's probably a fair scoreline, because that own goal looked pretty dodgy, so I think Bournemouth do deserve that goal back, but hopefully we can hold on here. And off the back of that, we do have a corner. Farias puts this into the mixer. Unfortunately, Williams can't get there, but there might be a push in the back now. Greaves has gone down to a red heart. We might take him off before this penalty does take place, but the Waine Train is still on penalties. It has been awarded. We'll just make the sub before this does happen. Jacob Greaves coming on for him. It will be Sebastian Hausner, and that will mean that Ryan Fredericks can go out left for the last couple of minutes of this game, and Hausner, he can go out right as he did a couple of times for us last season. But I'm pretty sure the Waine Train should still be on penalties. That is the case. I can see the number 23 there, and hopefully it's time now for the Waine Train to score his first goal in the Premier League. And he does. He pops that one top right corner. The Waine Train is underway as a Premier League footballer, and thankfully we do bounce back and get our 2-goal advantage back, even though we probably don't deserve it. But we pump that one top right corner through the Waine Train from a set piece penalty. A push there from that corner and make it 3-1, and it does look like we're going to pick up 3 points on this opening day of the season. Now it's Randall down to a red heart, but we are out of subs, and it is full time, and we win our opening game of the Premier League, and thankfully we did, because those are definitely the games this season we will be targeting against those teams who are expected to be in and around us on that Premier League table, and thankfully we get the job done and also play pretty well. I think 2-0 would have been a fair scoreline from that game. Obviously that period around the 76 to 80 minute mark was a bit funny with that Lewis Cook own goal, which I think falls on Neto more, but then they got one back through Tyler Adams, which did cancel that out. But thankfully we got goals early through Callum Wright and late from the spot through Ben Waine, and we start our life in the Premier League with a 3-1 win over Bournemouth. So encouraging signs here early for us at Plymouth Argyle in the Premier League. We'll tell the guys that was good, and we pick up 3 points in our first game, just like we did against Huddersfield in the Championship last season. We'll get through this post-match interview. It was a good performance. Good goal from Tyler Adams, which, as I said, they definitely deserve off the back of that very dicey own goal. But early stages, we're actually inside the top 4 off the back of a win in our first game of Premier League football, 3-1 over Bournemouth. So a great start to life in the Premier League for us here at Plymouth Argyle, a 3-1 win on the opening day over Bournemouth. Thankfully we did do that because, as I said, those kind of points this season will be big for us against those teams expected to be down in the bottom half of the Premier League table. If we can beat those kind of teams at home, hopefully that will mean we can pick up enough points to make sure we will stay up in the Premier League early stages, up in 6th on the table, but obviously don't read too much into that yet. The 3 points is the most important things there. You can see the other results on this first match week. Man United, they beat Everton 3-0 at Old Trafford. Also Aston Villa thumped West Ham. Chelsea beat Arsenal at the Emirates. That's a bit different to what you expect to happen in real life at the moment. And other results from that match day that we played on: Brighton beat Tottenham, Crystal Palace beat Forest, Liverpool just beat Leeds. So Leeds put up a pretty good fight there. Man City thumped Newcastle, and Fulham, they got the better of Sheffield United off the back of that opening game the day prior, where Brentford, they beat Ipswich Town, which is of interest to us because next up we do travel to take on that Brentford team. But that will do it for the first episode of this second season of the Waine Train, our first one in the Premier League, and thankfully did get off to a good start and also recapped all that transfer business that we did do. If you enjoyed today's episode, then do remember to go down below, leave a thumbs up on the video, and if you haven't done so already and are enjoying the series here on the channel or looking forward to our first one in the Premier League, then also consider hitting that subscribe button and turning that notification bell on as well. We'll come back tomorrow, not too far away because we're not that far away now from transfer deadline day. Not too sure if we'll do too much there because our transfer budget not very high, but as I said, Julio Plagazello in the last year of his contract, that would probably be the only player we'd look to move on. If we got rid of him, then we'd probably go looking for another centre-back option. But we'll come back for that Man United game at Old Trafford. That will be very interesting to see how we get on against the big gun this time in a Premier League game. It does mean they might put out a stronger team than what Chelsea put out against us in the Carabao Cup last season. Off the back of that, we take on another good Premier League team, but this time in the Carabao Cup, the second round, where we do take on Brighton. That one also away from home, so we might be about to hit a tricky patch here at Plymouth Argyle with 3 straight away games before we do enter transfer deadline day. So we'll come back for those 2 games tomorrow and also any business on deadline day if we do any. So until then, thank you very much for watching. Keep on keeping on, and I'll see you then. Cheers.